Hello and welcome to another edition of the Talking City podcast with myself, Alex James, and Chief City writer Simon Bajkowski. Simon, are you well?
Very well, thank you, Alex. Better than
Good.
you, I think.
Yeah, I'm battling a bit of the must have been all the excitement of the Etihad on Saturday, I think. Just finished me off, or all my kids passing on germ after germ after germ. But
One or the other.
we push on as we must.
Yes.
Nice to be reflecting on a really positive 60 minutes, probably, from
Yeah, important to say the sort of last 60 minutes of the game, because
the first
after
20
the
minutes was
first-
head in hand stuff, I think.
we were
wasn't it?
looking at each other thinking, I was thinking, like, forget Champions League. I don't think City are going to get in Europe. I don't think they're going to play in the Europa. I don't think they're going to play Conference League. It's like, will they ever win again? Rhymes with Amorim stuff. It was, bleak for the start, but as you say, a very positive afternoon in the end.
And it was De Bruyne, wasn't it? De Bruyne grabbed that game by the scruff of the neck
Yeah.
and sort of hauled City back into it.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously City 2-0 down to Palace, and then they get this free kick about 25 yards out,
Yeah.
probably. And like, even in the build-up, you've got Diaz and Kovacic shouting at each other, arguing over something that one of them or the other one's done that they're not happy with. And then next thing Diaz knows, he's ducking out of the way because De Bruyne has smashed a shot at him, and it's gone over Diaz's crouched body and in off the post. And it was sort of like, yeah, the rest of you might be messing about, but I want to win this game.
Yeah.
Thing from Kev.
Just before that as well, I think he'd hit the post, hadn't he? And he'd kind of
Yeah.
he'd given it that to the crowd, and he's like, "Come on, we can do this," kind of thing. And
Yeah,
it just felt like he, out of everybody, and he's one of City's best ever players. He's captain. It is his job to lead by example a little bit, but he led by example and then some on Saturday.
Yeah. And I think he's only got 3 games left at the Etihad now after that one. So that was his 4th from the end. He's on the countdown tour, really. And what a way to kind of mark his first home game since he'd announced he was leaving, because, like you said, he grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck in a way that sort of very few City players have all season, really. And it was a performance that kind of made you reflect on how good he's been and
absolutely.
how good he still is.
And it didn't look like it was going to happen either. Like,
No.
City could easily have been 4-0 down after 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And 2-0 down as it was.
They were 2-0. They had a goal marginally ruled out for offside. It was offside. And Sarr missed a very good chance, didn't he? But Palace basically said, you've got an attacking midfielder playing at left back. Yeah, we're just going to kick the ball behind him and run on. And Edison wasn't great. The second goal, you can't be letting people score from a corner like inside the 6-yard box. Edison got blocked off, and Diaz wasn't strong enough. It was just really, really poor, and it looked like, every time Palace want to attack, they can attack and they can probably score.
It was nice. It was nice through butter stuff, really, wasn't it? And it was obvious what they were doing. Like, I know every team comes into a game with a plan, and they might see O'Reilly playing at left back and think we can target that, and they know that maybe they can get in on transition with the players they have, like Eze and what have you. But City didn't seem to, they were rabbit in the headlights, I thought, for sort of 15 minutes in the middle of that.
Yeah, and I would say it is the angriest I felt the Etihad.
Yeah.
Like, people around us were genuinely frustrated and sort of unhappy with the level of performance and wanting a better performance. And, there's been frustration all season, but I can't remember as much kind of like just more what you're used to at every other ground, kind of just like, oh, come on, do something, kick him, do anything. It kind of felt like that. It was like, just do something, City, because they were just getting overrun.
And then they did do something, and as soon as De Bruyne scored, you kind of felt like, well, the second and third is coming here. If the first half had carried on for another 5 minutes, I think City would have scored in it, and then they scored within whatever it was, 45 seconds of the second half.
It must have been deflating for Palace because they're 2-0 up, but they feel like they should be 3 or 4-0 up, and then De Bruyne scores that, and it's suddenly like City feel like they should be out of it, but they're not. And Palace feel like they should have put it beyond City, but they haven't, and they're now back in a game, and City have got the momentum. And I think there was a chance. McAtee put a header wide, didn't he, at 2-1, but you just felt more goals were coming because City had just suddenly discovered this way to. They were like, well, we can't defend still, but we're going to attack now, and the crowd responded because the crowd had been a bit annoyed and was suddenly like, right, come on, then you're showing us what we want to see. And it was a good atmosphere and some really good football from City, really, to create the opportunities.
Yeah, I think obviously getting level before halftime and then scoring straight away in the second half. I mean, that just knocked Palace winning the game in the second half. Whether that just seemed to knock the stuffing out of them. Definitely not the stuffing out of Oliver Glasner. I think wins the award for most animated man, or certainly would top the step count, I think, of Premier League managers in his tenure.
Yeah.
He was non-stop for the first sort of 50 minutes.
Where's the BBC heat map when you need it? He was. I mean, I like Glasner and I like Palace, but it was similar to the City's performance at Bournemouth, where they've been quite bad in the first half, and then the second half, you're watching it and you're kind of like, how does a team go from sort of being so porous and open at the back and sort of almost comically bad at defending to just not giving the opposition a chance? City just took control of the game, and I think it was kind of momentum based, because I think Palace, they must have gone in at half time and thought, we've been hanging on here, but we just need to come out in the second half and sort of start again almost. And then within 90 seconds, they're 3-2 down, and was it 4-2 after like an hour? McAtee scored, so it was game over, and it was kind of a very positive afternoon, really.
And they missed some chances as well, City, in the second. I mean, they could have scored 3 or 4 more in the second half. It was such an open game,
and that is the big positive, because City all season really have struggled to create chances, and that is one of the sort of first times in ages where they've looked just so fluid. Interesting that there were no wingers.
So I was going to come on to that, because wingers were suddenly they were in vogue for City in the early part of the season. It seemed like Pep Guardiola had kind of nailed his colours to the mast, and it was going to be Savinho and Doku. And now it's no Savinho, no Doku. It's James McAtee playing wide. De Bruyne was kind of drifting out there a little bit in the second half, and there wasn't a natural winger in sight, really.
Yeah. I was Googling what the Catalan for Christmas tree was before the game, but it was kind of like McAtee and De Bruyne behind Marmoush. And I think, Foden would have played in the McAtee role had he been fit. But yeah, opting against width. Because even a few weeks ago, it was Savinho and Doku.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many formations can we come up with that Jack Grealish still can't get a game? Came on for like the last 3 minutes, but interesting that McAtee was preferred to all of them, really, because all of them were ahead of him, and also Oscar Bob, who sort of probably climbed above McAtee, but then has been out all season with injury. But yeah, I kind of think, obviously, when you've got Haaland in the middle, you need the wingers and you need the width, and like teams are going to be so congested in the middle that you need to stretch them. Whereas Marmoush is a different character, isn't he? He kind of like buzzes about all over the place, and it's like playing with a false 9, so people can go forward and wide and at a bit more will. And I'm not going to get into the sort of, they're a better team without Haaland, but they offer a different threat without Haaland, and I quite liked the wingerless approach.
I think that's what it is. Then it's with Haaland, we need the wingers. Haaland's out. Obviously, they're going to play differently. Marmoush, whether through his preference or Pep's preference, is kind of drifting off the left a bit, isn't he? At times, it's better suited to play those kinds of players that we saw on Saturday than a Savinho and a Doku, who are very much the touchline players.
I think there has been a frustration with the end product of Savinho and Doku for pretty much all all season, and I think they, them not being in the team is partly down to that, because if they'd played better and sort of shown more output, then a place would be found for them in the team.
Yeah.
But because they've not been able to do it on the wings, and because of it's Marmoush rather than Haaland, I think it kind of makes sense to be a bit more fluid and down the middle.
Yeah, I must admit, I was surprised, shocked, flabbergasted that McAtee was in that 11. Not for anything against James.
First
McAtee.
start ever,
exactly,
for City in the league.
And I know they're all important games, but it felt like a sort of crucial game in this race for the Champions League places. Everybody else is fit, as you said. Bob, Grealish, Savinho, Doku, all on the bench.
Yeah.
McAtee's been, he's not been in some squads, let alone been on the bench, and suddenly he's parachuted in and scores. And what he does do is he scores. I can't remember what his stats are, but it's something like 7 goals in 4 starts or something.
Yeah. It's he just scores goals, and it was a really well taken goal. He should have had more. He should have scored a couple of more, but he makes things happen. And a bit like Marmoush does, it's not, the energy isn't always controlled, but it kind of unsettles defenders.
Yeah.
But yeah, having all season, McAtee could have played, maybe should have played certain games when they were sort of crying out for fresh legs, and Pep said, "Oh no, I'm sticking with the guys that I trust more, they're going to get us out." And then to basically out of the blue just say, first Premier League start for this guy. Reminded me a bit of when he did it a few years ago with the then unknown Cole Palmer against Everton, and it really worked then. And I think maybe just give the opposition something to think about, because they're suddenly like, oh, we weren't expecting them to be in the 11 and we don't know what they will bring, kind of thing. But it felt like, well, McAtee contributed towards the feeling of kind of fresh energy in the team. And he's put himself in the window to start at Everton with that, I think.
Yeah. And like you said, just for the first, until he scored, really, he was playing well. He was playing well-ish in a City team that wasn't playing well in the first 25 minutes, but he should have scored that header in the first half.
Yeah.
And then there was another chance, I think, early in the second half before he did
hit
score.
It over, didn't he?
Yeah, and he kind of picked the turf up and he was chucking it down. And I think Pat was in the touchline, and I thought, is this going to be like a...
What could have been?
Yeah, like a moment that could have been and wasn't. And then he did score. And then when he came off, I noticed that him and Pep were... And to be fair to Pep, he's always spoken very positively of him. He's just not played.
Yeah.
But there was a big cuddle and a little slap on the face, and it looked like they were best buds, and this was the kind of thing that happened every week. But
yeah, I think with McAtee as well, he's sort of like, he's got this knack for scoring goals, and even when he doesn't particularly play well, he pops up with a goal, and kind of more than ever in the City team it's needed. But I also think he's someone who looks a lot better when the team is better, and sort of he will link up really well with Kevin De Bruyne when Kevin De Bruyne is playing really well and things like that. But he struggles a bit more when the team is floundering around him. So I mean, someone messaged me to say they thought that was his best performance for City. And you think about it and you think it's probably hard to disagree with that, because he could have taken more chances. But kind of overall, and given the circumstances where he was starting ahead of 3-4 players who you would think were ahead of him, he kind of justified his place.
Where do you see his best position, McAtee? Because he's one of those who can play in a number of positions, and I don't know if sometimes maybe this might be a bit of an old-fashioned thing to say, but sometimes he's penalised for not having a fixed position. If that makes sense. Like
just as Foden has been kind of all his career. I think that kind of role, almost like a number 10, tucked in behind the striker, like we saw at Sheffield United. He worked very well with Ollie McBurney, who was sort of a big number 9.
Yeah.
And I think sort of a fluid forward, he is where he's probably most comfortable. I'm not sure he's got the the defensive responsibility is yet to be an 8 in the City team. And on the wings, there's a danger that he gets a bit lost.
Yeah.
But he give him the ball and he will do something generally.
And like you said, he's made it difficult to be. I mean, it's possible, but he's made it difficult to be left out at Everton.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, very possible that he doesn't get picked again. But all you can do as a young player when you sort of are given these opportunities is, make enough of it that you're in contention for the next chance. And I think he is. And I think, it worked very well against Palace. And, if City play like that against Everton, I think they'll be celebrating another win.
And they're all big games in the Premier League, obviously, but we've got the FA Cup semi-final coming up, and you couldn't argue if McAtee played in that based on. I know I'm basing this on one performance, not even a whole performance really. I'm basing it on 60 minutes of City playing well. But if you were to look at the fixture list for the rest of the season, the FA Cup semi-final, Wembley, chance to get to the final, end the season with a trophy. If you were picking your 11 for that, you would suggest you're going to pick your strongest available 11, and depending on the system and the setup, there's an argument for playing a similar setup to, and Foden probably comes in ahead of McAtee for that if he's fit, I suppose. But there's an argument for not playing Savinho and Doku because of what we've just seen from City playing with the kind of inside forwards, I guess.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the way City set up every game, City's whole model is based on expected goals, and they build up through each position. Like, what will this person give us? What will this person give us? What will they take away from us? And with Haaland, it's completely different to without Haaland. So, it's kind of a game changer, Marmoush being in instead of Haaland, and you kind of rethink the whole team and think, right, well, people who may not necessarily have worked then can work now maybe. And it's going to be interesting because as well, the Forest game, when City played them away in March, Guardiola was absolutely fuming. And that, if I'm not mistaken, was Savinho and Doku on the wings, and they just didn't do enough. And it was a really flat performance. And I can't, Guardiola will want the performance to be as far away from that as possible. So you wonder, well, will the personnel be as far away as possible?
And I would say Forest and Palace are similar in terms of the way they play. But Palace obviously play 3 at the back. Forest quite often play 3 at the back. They've got those counter-attacking players. You kind of can see the similarities between those two teams. And City have just, albeit not to start with, but for the majority of that game on Saturday, have just proved that they can, they can outdo that. So
and again, you don't want to make too much of it because it's just one game, and we've been here a lot this season. But it was a very good performance in the end.
Yeah, and we touched on McAtee there, but we had Nico O'Reilly and Rico Lewis at fullback. Nico O'Reilly, I know he was targeted in that first half, but then he pops up with a goal late on.
Yeah,
but Rico Lewis did okay.
Yeah,
3 young players, 3 players from the academy in the team. Could have been, well, it might have still only been 3, I guess, if Foden was fit, but it could feasibly have been 4.
Yeah,
that's another sort of contributing factor, I think, to supporters love that, don't they?
I think so. Yeah, like the chance for Nico were there, like from the start, basically whatever he did, and he spent a large part of the first 25 minutes of the game getting skinned.
Wondering why he'd said he could play left back.
Yeah. But he was very good going forward. It seems to be the sort of job description of a City left back. It's like, must be good going forward, defensive skills optional. He's not a left back, but he did very well. And yeah, I couldn't. I was like, 3 academy players starting in a Premier League game is fairly wild. I was like, it must be absolutely ages. I was thinking it was like back to Mark Hughes' time, maybe when they had 3, and then
you're gonna tell me it was last week.
A supporter kindly reminded me it was this season. When Simpson Pussy was at Brighton. But, to have 3 without Foden is very impressive. So it's probably it doesn't make any sense, the stat, really, to be like the first time without Foden. But nevertheless, there was a bit extra because there were 3 local boys in the team, and there was a bit extra because they did well.
Yeah, and you said before, we don't want to get carried away. It's just one game. We've been here all the time. That's the challenge for City now, isn't it? Because I think obviously they started this. I think they started the season with 4 straight wins, and then
Yeah,
reeled off another 3 wins before.
yeah.
After Arsenal,
7 in the first 9. Yeah,
I'm not sure there's been too. They certainly haven't won 3 Premier League games
No.
in a row since then, and I
No,
don't think
no.
there's too many occasions where they've won back-to-back
No.
Premier League games
No,
since
no.
then. So that's the test now, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
take that, use that momentum that we saw on Saturday
yeah,
at Everton, which is a completely different proposition to the Everton of 3 months ago.
yeah, yeah. I mean, David Moyes was watching at Old Trafford. I'm sure he'll have a tape of the Palace game, but City will hope he's focusing on the City at Old Trafford because they were rubbish, and against Palace they were a lot better. It's going to be a big test, and huge win for Everton away at Forest at the weekend, having held Arsenal at Goodison last week. So it will not be an easy game. But if they can win, I think, like, I turned to you when they were 2-0 down and was like, they might not make Europe, this lot. If they can win at Everton, I think the tea time game on Saturday is Villa Newcastle.
Yeah.
And then on Tuesday night, it's City Villa. So, like, if they can win at Everton and beat Villa, the race for top 5 could be looking kind of close to done and dusted.
Yeah. And Forest are back in it now, aren't they?
Forest are back in it,
very much back in it.
Yeah, City 2 points behind them. So, yeah, it's kind of like it's a 5-team scramble with Forest, Newcastle, City, Villa and Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea not looking great, scrambling to a draw at home against Ipswich. So, City have got to make themselves the form team, and they can only do that by stringing a couple of wins together.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they're going to win all 7 between now and the end of the season, but if they win the first 3, they might not need to win anymore because they've kind of done the damage then.
Yeah, I think we said last week as well, obviously City are playing Villa, but City are, despite everything that's gone on, they are still pretty strong at the Etihad.
Yeah.
And Villa aren't.
Villa are less strong away from home.
Yeah.
And I've got PSG and then Newcastle and then City. It's tough for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we don't know what's going to happen in that PSG. I mean, it's not inconceivable Villa could qualify out of that
no.
tie. It's unlikely, but it's not inconceivable.
Yeah. But it'll take a lot out of them regardless because they will need to put absolutely everything into it. And then they're going to have to put a lot into Newcastle at home, who are doing very well at the minute.
Yeah. And I think Chelsea have got one of those teams to play still. I think Newcastle maybe have got to play Chelsea.
Chelsea have got Newcastle. They've got to play Liverpool still. And they are away at Forest on the final day. So there's a lot of kind of teams playing each other, where City have got Villa, but then after that, they've got Fulham on the last day, but like Wolves at home, Southampton away.
Yeah,
that's the thing. City have got Everton away and then Villa at home, and then it's Wolves at home and Southampton away. Like, if you can, you beat Everton, you turn up against Villa, and
if you're hand picking a run in,
you're
as
looking.
Well.
Yeah.
I know Wolves have picked up a little bit, but
they're still the 16th best team in the
and
league,
they've picked up a bit and now achieved what they need to achieve. It's and Southampton are Southampton.
Yeah.
Arguably, the Everton game is the toughest game left for me because of because it's away, because it's
they've picked up so well.
They've picked up so well, and there's a bit of we were saying before about De Bruyne is kind of on his There's a bit of that around Goodison.
Goodison, yeah.
They're playing well. And they've got a manager who knows, and I know his record against sort of top teams isn't great, but he knows what is required in the Premier League. He's been around the block long enough. I would imagine Everton are going to cause City a few problems.
Yeah. I mean, I really like David Moyes. I think he's a really good coach, and coach whose kind of reputation is unfairly looked on because of that big disaster at United, but like if we've seen what's come since at United,
it wasn't that big a disaster.
Yeah, how they would love to finish 7th now. So I think it's going to be tough. But like I say, it almost feels like the City can achieve what they want to achieve this season in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
if they're on it. And so the problem this season has been Guardiola doesn't know when they are on it and when they're not. But if they can kind of channel their momentum and energy into just get over the line here, boys, then that will be very positive.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still reasonably confident. I mean, it wouldn't stun me if they finished above Forest now.
No,
the way Forest have tailed off. I've always thought City have got enough to finish top 5.
Yeah,
Newcastle are going very, very well.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't. I think Chelsea will probably, if you had hand on heart, I think Chelsea will probably drop out of those 3. I wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea finished below Villa, especially if Villa lose.
I think Chelsea.
The Champions.
Yeah.
And then you would look at the semi-final and you would make City favourites for that now, when maybe they wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
A month ago.
Yeah, potentially.
Forest beat them.
Yeah. It's going to be tough again, but everything looks more positive after the Palace game.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. They're going to win the league. No, they can't. They can't win the league. But yeah, I think it just doesn't take much. Doesn't take much to kind of see how the team can play. And also, De Bruyne, he obviously can't do it all the time, but like if you can get those kind of performances out of him in 3 or 2 out of the last 6, 7 games, like he will win you those games.
Yeah. And this is that obviously the defense is still, well, it's shorthanded by the fact that most of the first choice defense is injured.
Yeah.
And it's still looks susceptible. But going forward, all the players are fit now as well. The vast majority of those, apart from Haaland, obviously.
Yeah.
There's so many options there, though, to impact a game, change a game.
Yeah.
That maybe City haven't really had.
No, I mean, that's been part of the issue. They've not had the competition for places between them.
Even Oscar Bob, you think how, like, not Club World Cup, pre-season tour in America. I know it was a different set of circumstances, but Oscar Bob came out of that as, oh, wow, this is,
going to be his
season.
Yeah. But even when he came on against Palace, like he was really good and really bright and taking people on. And I think he made his sort of return from injury in a under-21s game against Palace, and he didn't look confident. He didn't look like he was fully confident in his body and in what it could withstand and things like that. And I thought he looked a million miles better on Saturday when he came off the bench.
Yeah, so that's a lot of options. And obviously the defence is what the defence is, but probably not going to see any of those John Stones, Nathan Ake, Manu Akanji. Do you think any of those have got a chance of being $1 million question?
I think Akanji's closest. I think Akanji's close to sort of being back on the grass training, but
back on the grass,
not yet. And the others are behind him. So yeah, I think it's going to be Diaz and maybe Guardiola for the foreseeable. We could talk about Kusanov, I suppose, not playing, but that might leave you short of things to talk about later this week.
Well, and also the plan probably hasn't been to play Kusanov. When Kusanov arrived, the plan wasn't to shove him straight into the team against Chelsea and then play him again and play him again and play him again.
Yeah, but again, Pep having gone all season saying, doesn't matter that I've got 8,000 centre-backs injured, I'm still not playing Guardiola at centre-back, even though he's a centre-back, has suddenly just gone, yeah, all right, I'll play him at centre-back. And he looks a lot happier and more comfortable in that role.
Yeah, because I like Guardiola because he just strikes me as one of those. Players who'll do. He's 100%, isn't he? He's committed. From left back, he was marauding in a way that I think anyone who kind of watched him before he arrived at City would be thinking,
Yeah. He-
Is that Josko Guardiola?
it was kind of like he almost like the next John Stones. It was like he took on the role so well. He was charging about everywhere at left back, even being like, yeah, Pep doesn't know why I'm in the box, but I am. And you kind of thought, yeah, this is him forever. And now he's moved to centre back. He's sort of, I don't think he did any running. He just,
no, it's just like a composed centre half.
Yeah. Like some great tackles, but yeah,
these two lines of the box.
Yeah, and you know, I spoke to him the other week, and he was just like, it's so much easier playing centre back, and you're like, yeah, you don't move. It's like sort of a champion badminton player or whatever. You just stand in the middle, sending everyone else away. But at left back, that was him running about everywhere. But he's not anymore. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they continue with that defense.
Yeah, at some point, surely they're going to sign a specialist left back.
Yeah, I mean,
I know they'd probably say that for.
Yeah, they like Cambiasso from Juventus, and they did like him in January. But when the kind of interest in January came up, it was kind of like, oh, we like him, but it's not one for January. We don't want to sign him now. So, but you were still talking about probably like 60, 65 million.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, it won't be cheap, but it will be. But I suppose if you sign a specialist left back, then you maybe don't have to sign a centre back if one of Nathan Ake or John Stones goes, because Guardiola can play inside but can also cover left.
Yeah. Interesting times ahead, but that's for another day. We shall leave it there for now. Thanks as ever for watching and for listening, and as always, you can follow all the build up to Everton in the Premier League on Saturday, and indeed throughout the game on the usual MEN channels. Thanks very much.